Hi everyone, this is Professor Benjamin, and you have almost made it through week 1 of this course. So this is a 10-week course, which is an accelerated course, so we still cover 15 weeks worth of work in 10 weeks. The first week I kind of give you a break and we only cover one session, but from this point forward, next week we'll be covering 2 sessions a week for about 5 weeks. So be ready to put some time in over the next couple weeks in this course. So each week I make one of these like video roundups, or I type out a roundup, and in it contains information that'll help you for the midterm and final exam. It will also wrap up kind of what we did this week and what I'm looking forward to in the upcoming week. So this first week you had one initial post due for the introduction session that kind of dealt with the chapter 1 of the textbook. Couple things. Number one is that I have very high expectations for my students. So a lot of you submitted work that just was not up to the standards for this course. I want you to make sure that if you haven't had time yet, that you make sure you read the documents under here, the course information section, so this initial post and response post. It's very important that initial posts in this class are like mini papers, so they're at least 300 words. They contain paragraphs with a clear beginning, middle, end. They contain sources that I have given you. You use those sources in your post. You answer the question. So very important. And then response posts in this class have to be at least 200 words, agree, disagree, or why with the fellow classmates' posts. This week was a little bit different because we started class on Tuesday. Every other week this semester, your initial posts are due by Tuesday, your response posts are due by Thursday. Every week it will be the same, so put a reminder in your phone, whatever you have to do. But all initial posts from this point forward are due by Tuesday, response posts are due by Thursday, quizzes due by Sunday. So make sure that you put those deadlines in your phone, because if you see the post looks like it's due here, it looks like it's due on Thursday, but in reality it's actually due, the initial post is due on Tuesday, response post on Thursday. Okay, so last week we only covered one session, which was the introduction, and you'll have a quiz due by Sunday 11:59, and it deals with the textbook chapter. Now some of you may say to me, oh well, I don't have the textbook yet. Well, you'll have to use the PowerPoint as a source to help you take the quiz. If you open the PowerPoint in PowerPoint, at the end of the PowerPoint slides, there are notes that I have created that go along with the PowerPoint. So make sure that you look at those. If you do not have the textbook, it's your best bet at succeeding on the quiz. Okay, and that is due by Sunday 11:59. So by February 16th 11:59, that quiz is due. So now as we move into the next week, we're going to cover Tragedy of the Commons, and we're going to cover session 3. So you have an initial post due for Tragedy of the Commons, you have an initial post due for Ethics, Economics, and Policy. You are going to pick one of the 6 questions that is given there. Now one thing I want you to take note of is the fact that only 6 people can answer each of the questions. So let's say 6 people answer question number 1 under Tragedy of the Commons, then no other student can answer that. So it's absolutely essential that if you go in there and you see a question you like to answer, that you answer that question, get in early and answer it before the Tuesday night deadline, because then less students will have answered it. If you're the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th person to answer the same question, then you do not receive points for your initial post. There are lots of reasons for this. Number one is if I give the same question, students just copy their answers from other students, and it becomes just kind of like rereading the same answer over and over again. So I give 6 questions because I want students to break it up and develop their own thoughts in this class. Tragedy of the Commons is one of the most important sessions that we're going to cover. And if you look here, there's no quiz with Tragedy of the Commons. And the reason for that is because there's no textbook chapter that is associated directly with Tragedy of the Commons. They mention it in the textbook, but they don't have a whole chapter on it. So you'll see there's no quiz due here, okay? But you will have a quiz for the Ethics, Economics, and Policy, because there's a chapter in the textbook that goes along with Ethics, Economics, and Policy. Tragedy of the Commons is really important. This session, I want you to make sure, so one person has already posted, and I'm going to ask that person maybe to go back and repost again, because every single one of you needs to use this article in your answer as one of the sources. You will then need to use probably another one of these articles. So you should probably have a minimum of 2 sources this week in your initial posts. This article is the mainstay for this entire course. And the idea of this article is the fact that Garrett Hardin is saying that there are no technical solutions to commons problems, meaning a common is a shared space, so air, water, land. It could be as small as a park. It could be as large as a national park, okay? But what he's saying is that in order to protect these, we kind of put in these technical solutions. And these technical solutions can include the fact that we put in taxes to stop people from polluting, right? Or you have to pay a fine if you pollute. We put in a welfare state to try and stop people from destroying the commons. We do all these different things that are technical solutions. The problem is they never stop the abuse of the commons. Technical solutions is what he's saying really need an extension in morality. So they need some other piece to it to tell people why destroying the commons is not a good thing, because we look for those short-term interests, meaning we look to abuse the commons for our short-term gain rather than looking at the long-term interests of society. And so that is the mainstay of the article, is that he talks about all these different technical solutions we put into place, and he says why they don't work. The best one that he says works is mutual corrosion, which is actually taxes. He uses an example of parking meters in the article, which is we like that because we feel like our freedoms in the commons are not taken away. So we can still park somewhere, but we're just going to pay a fee to do it. And he says that that works a little bit, but we also need to have the underlying factor why those taxes or why those fines are really important to have in place. So this article is absolutely essential. You're going to need to use it in answering all of the questions that are asked under Tragedy of the Commons. So remember, you're going to pick one of the questions and answer it using, this article. Here, under Ethics, Economics, and Policy, you have another big chunk of reading to do. And I know it's a lot, but this is a 10-week course, so we're not going to cut 4 weeks off of the course or 5 weeks off of the course. We're just going to ask you to condense the material. So the first couple weeks in this class are going to be super intense, and you need to put the time in order to succeed. But this article, Pricing the Priceless, talks about the economic valuation that we put on the environment. So yes, we can put in economic value. We can put a price tag on nature. Heck, I have a price tag, you have a price tag, how much you're worth. And we do put a price tag on nature. The issue is that it's not really accurate. It doesn't take into account a lot of factors, and that's one of the issues. So they actually talk about the implementation in this article of the arsenic, putting in a new policy that will put a limit on arsenic in drinking water. And they talk about, what's the best bang for our buck? Well, this many people will die, but it is the most cost-effective way to do it. And so that is what this article is about. It talks about the issues with it, the people's willingness to pay, what they're actually going to pay, the survey they use to figure out how much nature is worth. So there's a lot in there. This article also talks about some of the ways that we can move away from cost-benefit analysis, which is CBA, and use maybe cap and trade or other ways to put a price tag on nature. So that is what that article is about. This session also talks about environmental injustices. Environmental injustices is when people are kind of different resources are kind of abused in specific areas because of the socioeconomic or race class of the individuals who live there. So a good example of this is that in Camden there is a sewage treatment plant. That sewage treatment plant was slated for Cherry Hill, New Jersey, but Cherry Hill is a mostly white, Asian, upper to middle class neighborhood, and people came out to the meetings and fought it, and then very quietly it was moved to Camden, New Jersey. And this was a big issue, and Camden citizens sued and won a class action lawsuit because of this. And they said it was environmental injustice. Like, you put the sewage treatment plant here because, number one, we're poor, so we can't come out to meetings because we have 2 jobs and we don't have time to go to the Board of Ed, or not the Board of Ed, but the town meetings. We don't have time to, hire lawyers. We don't have time to research what's going on. And so it was environmental injustice, and the citizens of Camden won. So that's a good indication. Another one they talk about is military bases, and this is very relevant to our class because of what's going on at the Willow Grove Air Force Base and how they sprayed fire retardants for years, and they have now, those PFOS have gotten into the water system in this area. So that's really important as well. So these are the 2 sessions that you're going to cover. Initial post for Tragedy of the Commons due by Tuesday, response post by Thursday, initial post due by Tuesday for economics, ethics, and policy due by Tuesday next week, response post to a classmate by Thursday, and then next week a quiz on ethics, economics, and policy. Okay, so you need to make sure that you're reading all of the articles under here. I know it's a lot of reading, but it's absolutely essential. In a 15-week class, we'll just cover 1 session per week, but this is a 10-week class, so we need to make up that time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, but you want to make sure that you're answering one of the 6 questions. Make sure you're not past the 6th person when you answer that question. Okay? If you have any other questions or concerns, feel free to reach out. Do not forget that you have a quiz due by February 16th, 11:59 on Chapter 1 or the introduction chapter of your textbook. Hopefully, this little roundup helped you understand the material that we're covering and why we're covering it. And how it relates to environmental conservation. I will round up again next week as we look forward to the following 2 weeks that are coming up. Again, I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to, if you have any questions, make sure you reach out.